Civil society is the aggregate of non-governmental organizations and institutions that manifest interests and will of citizens. Civil society includes the family and the private sphere, referred to as the third sector of society, distinct from government and business. Dictionary.com's 21st Century Lexicon defines civil society as 1. The aggregate of non-governmental organizations and institutions that manifest interests and will of citizens, or 2. Individuals and organizations in a society which are independent of the government. Sometimes the term civil society is used in the more general sense of the elements such as freedom of speech, an independent judiciary, etc., that make up a democratic society. Especially in the discussions among thinkers of Eastern and Central Europe, civil society is seen also as a concept of civic values. One widely known representative of this concept is the Polish former dissident Adam Michnik. Volunteering is often considered a defining characteristic of the organizations that constitute civil society, which in turn are often called NGOs, NPOs, or CSOs. Most authorities have in mind the realm of public participation in voluntary associations, trade unions and the like. But it is not necessary to belong to all of these to be a part of civil society. Etymology. The term civil society goes back to Aristotle's phrase koinonia politic, occurring in his Politics, where it refers to a community commensurate with the Greek city-state characterized by a shared set of norms and ethos, in which free citizens on an equal footing lived under the rule of law. The telos or end of civil society, thus defined, was common well-being, in as man was defined as a political animal. Though the concept was mentioned in Roman writers, such as Cicero, it entered into Western political discourse following the translation of Aristotle's works into Latin by late medieval and early Renaissance writers, such as William of Moerbeke and Leonardo Bruni, where it often referred to the ancient notion of a republic. With the rise of a distinction between monarchical autonomy and public law, the term then gained currency to denote the corporate estates of a feudal elite of landholders as opposed to the powers exercised by the prince. It had a long history in state theory, and was revived with particular force in recent times, in Eastern Europe, where dissidents such as Václav Havel employed it to denote the sphere of civic associations threatened by the intrusive holistic state-dominated regimes of communist Eastern Europe. Democracy. The literature on relations between civil society and democratic political society have their roots in early classical liberal writings like those of Alexis de Tocqueville. However, they were developed in significant ways by 20th-century theorists like Gabriel Armand and Sidney Verba, who identify the role of political culture in a democratic order as vital. They argued that the political element of political organizations facilitates better awareness and a more informed citizenry, who make better voting choices, participate in politics, and hold government more accountable as a result. The statutes of these organizations have often been considered micro-constitutions because they accustom participants to the formalities of democratic decision-making. More recently, Robert D. Putnam has argued that even non-political organizations in civil society are vital for democracy. This is because they build social capital, trust and shared values, which are transferred into the political sphere and help to hold society together, facilitating an understanding of the interconnectedness of society and interests within it. Others, however, have questioned how democratic civil society actually is. Some have noted that the civil society actors have now obtained a remarkable amount of political power without anyone directly electing or appointing them. It has also been argued that civil society is biased towards the global north. Partha Chatterjee has argued that, in most of the world, civil society is demographically limited. Vijay Sen civil society is a neo-colonial project driven by global elites in their own interests. Finally, other scholars have argued that, since the concept of civil society is closely related to democracy and representation, it should in turn be linked with ideas of nationality and nationalism. Latest analyses suggest that civil society is a neoliberal ideology legitimizing anti-democratic attack of economic elites on institutions of the welfare state through the development of the third sector as its substitute. Constitutional economics. Constitutional economics is a field of economics and constitutionalism which describes and analyzes the specific interrelationships between constitutional issues and functioning of the economy, including budget process. The term constitutional economics was used by American economist James M. Buchanan as a name for a new annual budget planning, as well as the latter's transparency to the civil society, are of the primary guiding importance to the implementation of the rule of law. Also, the availability of an effective court system to be used by the civil society in situations of unfair government spending and executive impoundment of any previously authorized appropriations, becomes a key element for the success of any influential civil society. Global critics and activists currently often apply the term civil society to the domain of social life, which needs to be protected against globalization, and to the sources of resistance thereto, because it is seen as acting beyond boundaries and across different territories. However, as civil society can, under many definitions, include and be funded and directed by those businesses and institutions who support globalization, this is a contested use. Rapid development of civil society on the global scale after the fall of the communist system was a part of neoliberal strategies linked to the Washington Consensus. Some studies have also been published, which deal with unresolved issues regarding the use of the term in connection with the impact and conceptual power of the international aid system. On the other hand, others see globalization as a social phenomenon expanding the sphere of classical liberal values, which inevitably led to a larger role for civil society at the expense of politically derived state institutions. The Integrated Civil Society Organizations System, developed by the Department of Economic and Social Affairs, facilitates interactions between civil society organizations and DESA.